Hello everyone, my name is Masrur Mehadi and I'm a junior here at American International School, Dhaka. And I would like to first start off by asking a question. When a country is progressing, how does it look like? We'll come back to that. Today, I want to talk about how we define progress and why it's time we rethink of this. More specifically, I'll talk about how we associate numbers and we create a narrative around how progress have numerical values. Now, growing up, progress was always showed through numerical values to me. They were presented as clear proof that things were improving. However, over time, I began to notice that this did not always feel the same for everyone. A common baseline indicator for progress is gross domestic product, which is GDP, which measures the total value of goods and services within a country. GDP puts a single-digit value to progress. Now, numbers are good. They provide descriptive statistics, rankings, and measurable quantitative indicators, and help us understand economic performances. They allow us to track growth and compare countries objectively. However, it does not always measure the quality of education, access to healthcare, environmental sustainability, or social equality. GDP can rise while income inequality stays the same or increases, or when environmental conditions decrease. This shows that how we measure output is through numbers rather than how people are actually living. A gap that becomes especially visible when we look at developing countries. Take this image, for example, in Dhaka, Bangladesh, where you see my previous point. On the right-hand side, we can see modern high-rise buildings, which show development and rising investment. However, just across the water, we can see packed, informal housing that reflects limited access to basic services and opportunity. While the city as a whole may be growing, economically, the benefits of that growth is not evenly distributed. This contrast shows us how economic growth does not always translate into equal living conditions and well-being for everyone. This graph highlights a key tension in how we measure progress. Over the past decade, Bangladesh has had steady economic and strong growth, despite a temporary dip in 2020. This suggests success. However, when we look at alongside income inequality, we see that this growth is not always matched with progress. As the economy expands, inequality remains high and even increases at times. This shows that growth can occur without improving people's lives or realities in the same way. For example, progress appears by expanding in urban development, while for others it is defined by access to basic healthcare, services, and equality. This contrast reminds us how economic growth does not always automatically translate into progress and well-being for everyone. Another example of progress beyond numbers is in rural villages. In rural villages, progress may not appear advanced or viewed through statistics alone. Yet daily life reflects the priorities that are different, such as shared resources and environmentally friendly lifestyle. These do not show up in GDP or growth figures, but still shape how people look at progress. This reminds us that development can be understood from multiple perspectives, and the numbers alone cannot fully capture how societies endure or move forward. Now, if progress cannot be understood through numbers alone, then we must rethink of what we place at the center of development. Instead of asking how economies grow, we should look at how growth improves people's lives. Human-centered development looks at the places and people rather than numbers at the core of decision-making. In this perspective, growth is not treated as a final goal, but as a tool to improve people's lives. Development focuses on strengthening conditions, education, healthcare, supporting communities, and considering long-term impacts on people's lives. For young people, this can mean leading initiatives or advocating for fairer systems. These efforts may not immediately be present by economic statistics, but they represent a form of progress that is resilient and meaningful. This approach encourages us to pay attention to outcomes that are harder to quantify. Factors such as stability and equal access to opportunity are rarely captured by economic statistics alone. Yet they strongly shape how progress is experienced. By recognizing these decisions, we take forward a broader understanding of how development can reflect people's lives. In conclusion, while economic indicators alone don't tell the whole story, true progress cannot be reduced to statistics alone. It must be reflected in the well-being of people, the health of the environment, and the fairness of opportunity for everyone. As we move forward, the challenge is not whether we can grow, but how we grow, who benefits, and who creates that, and what that growth creates for us. If we want a future that lasts, we must rethink of what we value and how we measure success. Because real progress isn't built by numbers, but how we build it tomorrow together. Thank you very much.